Welcome to the Cutting Down the Nits podcast presented by Big Panther Sports. Big Panther Sports, great for all your Big Ten news, content, recruiting, everything. They do great stuff. Go check them out at bigpanthersports.com. Cutting Down the Nits, the only Penn State basketball podcast presented by Big Panther Sports. It's been a while since we recorded, but I decided to take a new route, a new way of handling this Penn State basketball team. And usually we did the first 4 games, 4-game recap. But given it's the first real Monday of the new year, 2024, we're only going to look at the 2024 sample size for the Penn State Nittany Lions. And wow, you would think that opens up a lot for less questions and whatnot. No, it doesn't. It actually gives us more questions because the Penn State Nittany Lions have played in 2 games in 2024. The Thursday night matchup against Michigan State, and then the Sunday afternoon matchup against Michigan in the Palestra game. There's been 3 Palestra games since I've been a Penn State Nittany Lions fan. Iowa, then you had Purdue last year, and now you had Michigan this year. Granted, a Michigan team that's not that very good. And again, a lot of questions. I don't even think I mentioned the Ohio State game or the Georgia Tech game, and I might have, but I might be wrong. And then obviously they had 2 out-of-conference games to close out the new year, the 2023 going into the new year. And let's just talk about the Michigan State and Michigan games because both these games, let's look at the Michigan State game. They get killed by a Michigan State team that got their first conference win, a Michigan State team that came in with a lot of hype. I believed in this Michigan State team a lot. I thought they were going to be, one of the best, probably win the Big Ten. And obviously that's not the case this year. They get their first conference win against Penn State, dominating them at home. Completely, Penn State was not in control of this game at all. Almost go for 100. Had an effective field goal percentage of 64. Oh, my goodness. And Penn State just could never get it going. They had just terrible performance from Ace Baldwin, going 0 of 7 from the field was disgusting. And then obviously Kanye Clary kept his scoring ways. He had 21 points in that game. And coming out of this game, I think I had a couple questions. My first question was, at what point does Penn State start to address the turnover problem? They had 15 turnovers in that game. They had 16 fouls, which is both not and unlike that at the same time where, especially when you're in a game where it's out of control, you're going to try your best to, keep control of that game. And that does end up being terrible passes, more turnovers, more fouls and whatnot. The second thing I took from this game is, wow, Penn State, this is not the 3-point shooting team of last year. Last year, you're talking about one of the best Big Ten shooting teams in history. And this year, this Penn State team, my goodness, 3 of 29 from 3 in this game. And then another thing I saw from this game is, wow, Penn State should get to the line more, which is something that they're doing this season. It's a stark contrast from last season. They're actually getting to the line and actually converting at a high level. That's just from the Michigan State game. I did not expect Penn State to win that game. I didn't expect it to get killed like that because I thought this team was better defensively. But it just surprised me how bad they lost that game. They never had control. They didn't even look like they had control at any point. And now let's go into the Michigan game and the Palestra. To start, Penn State goes into the half down 10. You see the turnover problems. Kanye Clary started terribly. I think he only had like 2 or 3 points in the first half. So when your best scorer isn't scoring very well, Ace Baldwin had 12 points, I think, going into the half, and you think, all right, what's going to happen now? We're already down. We're not shooting well from 3. Our best scorer is not really shooting well. And Ace Baldwin, who, like we said, he has to either be 1B or 2. I don't think he could be the 1A scorer on this team when he's your lead scorer, but he's had a streak of just playing terribly. That's not really a good place for you to be in as a team. And then Penn State comes out in the second half and torches Michigan. Michigan was hitting difficult shots towards the end of the game, but obviously both teams weren't really shooting well in the first half. But going into the second half, my goodness, there's no reason why. I am truly surprised that Michigan got killed that badly in the second half. Penn State scores 52. I think that's a season high in the second half all season. To end up winning this game 79-73, it really wasn't that close as a score, as Michigan was hitting a bunch of difficult shots late in second half. And the problem is there's from a Penn State standpoint, from the Michigan and Michigan State game, there was not a change. There was nothing that went differently that they did differently that they didn't do in the Michigan game or the Michigan State game in terms of what type of shots they were taking, in terms of who was scoring. But one of the things I will tell you that they did, they turnovers. And it is shocking how good this team can be when they don't turn the ball over. This team had 6 turnovers. Compare that to the dozen plus that they've been having over the last couple games. That was an amazing game for them, for turnover wise. They did not turn the ball over, and I think a lot of it has to do with Ace Baldwin being the number one creator. He didn't really create a lot for his teammates, and that continues to be a problem with the guard lineup for Penn State because they really the assist rate is not high at all. And not saying that they have to convert a lot of assists, but you do not have that. I'm still not sure who is that creator, who is that floor general, who is that guy that's going to be able to help the half court offense be up to standard because Penn State, their shot selection, and we'll get into it, is so bad. It is really bad, but they're able to win these games really grittily because their defense is really good. And if they're able to string along a couple turnovers, and that's something they do, they force a steal like 1 out of every 10 possessions, which is absurd. You were going to be fighting an uphill battle with them. And because that's exactly what Penn State wants to play with. So we're obviously going to go into the yeses, the nos, and the I'm intrigued in terms of the trends for this team and see what happens as they go really into Big Ten play. Because now we're in the thick of it. No more non-conference. This is all Big Ten play. Penn State is 2-1 in Big Ten play. You would hope that they had their bad stride of the season in terms of their 5-game losing streak earlier on. So let's look at this. I'm trying to figure out how I want to do this. If I want to do yeses, then I'm intrigued, then no, because I have 3 yeses, 2 I'm intrigued, and 3 nos. So I'm going to do yes, I'm intrigued, no. Actually, yeah, in terms of that. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to do it concurrently in terms of by category, not just by topic. So let's get with the yeses. First yes, Kanye Clary shooting himself out of a slump. When you see a game like that where Kanye Clary starts really bad, I think he was like 1 of 9 or 1 of 7 to start the half. That seems like a situation where you're going to discourage him from shooting and whatnot. But I'm going to be so honest with you. I am more comfortable with Kanye Clary trying to shoot himself out of a slump than Ace Baldwin trying to shoot himself out of a slump. Because Kanye Clary ended up finishing the game against Michigan with 18 points. He ended up 5-20, 3 of 14 from 2 of 6 from the 3 and 3 of 14 from 2. And he didn't convert that much from the line, but he ended up still getting some sort of points on the board, being crafty, creating, and getting to the line and getting to the rim. Whether or not he finishes is a different problem, but he draws the defense in. You'd hope that he creates more out of those situations, but whatever. He didn't have any turnovers. He pushed the pace, whatever. So you want to add if you're in the defense and whatnot, then I'll add create for other teammates thing later because it's a problem and we really need to figure that out. But Kanye Clary shooting himself out of slump. I am more inclined to let Kanye Clary do that because I know that he is a player that will do that. He is someone who has been able to finish in tough situations. He's someone who's able to really get the shot that he wants. And that's the thing for him, especially when you look at a player like him. You do not want to worry about how efficient he's being because this year he's been extremely efficient. He's not those players that is, shooting at a terrible clip. He's shooting 50% from the field this entire year, 85% from the line, and 36% from 3. Those are very respectable numbers. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with him trying to get the shot that he wants. The fact that he's getting those floaters, those mid-ranges, he's getting into the lane and getting those tough finishes, I'm fine because he continues to get that. He's continuing to be a downhill guard and get that. And he's not somebody you really want when the pace is slow. He can create his own shot. He's one of the best, if not the best, shot creators on this team. He can create his own shot, but you are happy if he's getting the shot that he wants. Because every single time we've seen it in tough situations, we've seen it in blowouts, we've seen it in close games, he's able to get that shot. And because of that, I'm okay with him trying to shoot himself out of a slump. He still finished the game pretty well with 18 points. So I'm okay with that. So with that's a total yes. Another yes. I think very we talked about DeMarco Dunn quite possibly being the number one off the bench this year. And, I feel like whether that fell on deaf ears, whether it was we'll see how it goes, yada, yada, yada. Last few games, Marco Dunn has had 17, 10, 12, 4, and 13 points. He is a spark plug off the bench. There was a lot of questions we had going into the season as who's going to be that spark plug off the bench. Jameel Brown looks like it would be him, but obviously he got injured and that wasn't the case. We'll talk about Leo Boyle. But DeMarco Dunn has proven three things. He can be that secondary ball handler, shot creator on the floor. Doesn't matter if it's Ace or Kanye. He is that guy who's going to be able to put the ball on the floor and create his own shot. He's also proven another thing. He can get to the basket. That is something that I feel like when you look at a Penn State team or look at these teams in general, you say, oh, they're guys that are more inclined to shoot, yada, yada, yada. He can get to the basket. I've seen him have extremely good success getting into the paint and trying to finish in the restricted area. He's very good at that. Whether or not he does it is another problem because he's had, in the last 5 games, 4 of those games, he's taken 4 or more three-pointers, including 7 in the Georgia Tech game. But slowly but surely, he's been increasing, and he's carving out a more solidified role off the bench. And we're going to talk about what lineups I'd love to see him in, but he has proved that he can have length to defend, but he also has the quickness to create his own shot and get to the basket. But also, he has a good shot. I think, and I would hope, that the numbers will normalize because he isn't really shooting that well from 3 this season. I mean, he is, but the last couple of games he hasn't been shooting, but that's in terms of volume. As the volume increases, you expect the efficiency to go down, but I do think those numbers will normalize. He's shooting about 36% from 3 this season, but again, numbers are going to normalize. Same way I'd say he's not shooting as good from the line as you want him to, but he's getting to the line, and that's another thing. With this team, you really have to – the small take is the chances created and the volume of whatever chances you're trying to create is. Next, he has been really good in terms of his volume. He's shooting like the second best player on this team. Like he's taking the number of shots that you want him to do, and he's getting comfortable in taking those shots, and that's what you want to see from him. So that's definitely a yes for DeMarco Dunn. Number 3, and I think this is definitely the most like not it's obvious, but at the same time I feel like it's not talked about enough. Nick Kern Jr. needs to get as many minutes as possible. This team is a net positive when Nick Kern is on the floor. He doesn't take I don't know how to say this. It doesn't seem like Nick Kern takes bad shots. Granted, his job is not to take shots. His job is to space the floor. He's a fantastic defender, fantastic rebounder. He's one of those connecting pieces where you pass it out to him and he'll find somebody. When his shot is on, it's on. He's most likely at any point the most athletic person on the floor. He's that run and jump big that you need. And I have something to say. I would love to say it, but we'll see. He's definitely someone who I need to see more of. I would start him. I don't know if you want him as the 6th or 7th person coming off the bench, but he is someone who you want on the floor because he is someone who's going to provide a positive for you. We're going to talk about another guy in our nose, but that Nick Kern is definitely someone who is going to help you more than he's going to hurt you. He gets to the line. He's converting, I think, at a career high rate right now with 70% from the line. And he gets to the line often. His rebounding cannot be overstated enough. He's a really good rebounder. He's a really good defender. And he provides a presence in the paint, which you wouldn't for someone his size, but he does provide a presence in the paint. So I would love to see more of Nick Kern. I would love to see more of what he could do and I think Mike Rhodes could really have some very interesting lineups with him in the mix. He could legitimately, I think you could play him from positions 2 through 4, or even, dare I say it, the 5. But that's neither here nor there. So definitely more Nick Kern. So let's go to the I'm intrigues, right? Wow, I did not expect the water to sound that loud, but let's talk about Nick Kern. Let's talk about the intrigues. Small ball lineups without Qudus Wahab. Qudus Wahab is a very interesting player for this Penn State team. In the Michigan game, uh, he had 8 points, 5 rebounds, which, okay, 4 6 from the field, 2 blocks, 2 steals, 2 turnovers, 2 fouls. He is a player that operates on the mean for you. The last couple games, the good things that I've been praying for, he hasn't been doing. The block numbers have gone up, which I love to see. The rebounding numbers are weird. Like, he's really good on the offensive glass, but he's not that big bruising center that you want him to be. He's not athletic enough. Purely, that's like point blank. Brady's not athletic enough, but at the same time, he's big enough where he's going to provide that presence for you in the paint. Where I don't expect teams to just waltz into the paint and people think that they're going to have a good in there. I don't think that's the point at all. What I will say is that I legitimately think that Qudus Wahab, if you are trying to come back, not if you're ahead, it's great. If it's a game that's wire to wire, it's great. But if you're trying to come back on a team, Qudus Wahab is not the player that you want on the floor. Granted, you can say that with any center in college basketball, but Qudus Wahab especially, he's not someone, because he's not a pick and roll threat in any way, shape, or form, like at all. Like it's actually kind of annoying how not good of a pick and roll threat he is. Whether it's a chemistry problem or not, I don't think that players find him enough on this team, on this Penn State team. That's actually, it's that they don't find him enough. I legitimately think that Qudus Wahab, if you want to come back on the team, if you need to go on scoring runs, he's not the player to have on the floor. So what does that look like? What do you want in a small ball lineup without Qudus Wahab? Because if you don't have your center on the floor, you automatically, you assume the small ball lineup. I would love to see what a lineup with Aiden Kanye, because it does seem as if they've decided and learned how to play with each other. DeMarco at the 3. Yes, I know what I said. DeMarco at the 3. Zach Hicks or some combination of Zach Hicks and Nick Kern. Actually, that's at the 4 or the 5. I don't really want to speak too much on Zach Hicks in this episode because I spoke on him at length in the last couple episodes. But I do think now offensively he's someone you need on the floor. He is. Especially if you try to score. He's someone who I need him to continue to keep shooting because I think he can do that. I don't think he's as athletic as I thought he was, but at the same time, he's someone who his shot selection varies and he can hit those mid-rangers to long twos to long threes. But I would love to see what a small ball lineup of Ace, Kanye, DeMarco Dunn, the small threes, but two of those guys can defend. And Nick Kern and Zach Hicks. Some combination of that. I would love to see what that looks like without Qudus because that, I think, is the most offensively potent lineup. Obviously, we can talk more about everyone else, but still, I think that is their most offensively potent lineup. What's next? What is that intriguing? Getting to the line. Look, Penn State has always had, if you remember the Shrewsbury era, the whole thing was that Penn State was not getting the calls that they needed to. They did not get J.M. Pickett was not going to the line nearly as much as he needed to. Neither was Seth Lundy, whatever. Penn State has a advantage this year where they have two small guards that love to drive. Absolutely love to get to the paint. That is their bread and butter. If they see an open lane, they're going to take it. I know that for a fact. In the Big Ten, Penn State is top 6 in free throw attempt rate. They get line a very good amount of time. Like I think people need to understand that this is like a team in terms of free throw attempt rate, opposing fouls per game, everything like that, free throw percentage. This is a team that's in the upper 80 percentile in all of those. They shoot well at the line. They take a lot of free throws per game. They're taking averaging, I think, 22 per game, which is absurd. This is not the team of last year. I don't know what actually, let me look at that up right now. They take 23 free throws per game this year. Last year, they were taking 12 per game. Do you understand how crazy that is? They are literally taking 10 more free throws per game. They were in the 1 percentile in the Big Ten last year or not in the Big Ten, in the last year of free throw attempt rate. And now they are taking literally 22 per game, which is the upper 80th percentile. So this is that they can literally use to their advantage. They have ball guards that are constantly driving. They have two lanky forwards in Nick Curran and Zach Hicks who can get those calls, and they have Kudus Wahab who's getting mobbed every time he gets a rebound and gets to the line. Again, like I said, and hits them at a pretty decent clip for a big. They need to now scheme the offense to do that. Scheme the offense to get those calls. The same way Purdue likes to do that with Zach Edey and whatnot. Penn State needs to do that. Mike Rose needs to now shape his offense to say, what is the prime amount of fouls we can get? If we could get 20 free throws attempted per game, we're going to be in a fantastic spot. I really do need to see what the foul percentage is, because it's how good Penn State is at forcing fouls. Because opponents now are in the 81th percentile of forcing fouls against them. Last year, oh my gosh, they were averaging 13.5 fouls a game. Like, this is a different team in terms of getting to the line, and they need to use that to their advantage. So again, like I said, Penn State needs to find a way to scheme their offense to get as many free throws as possible. All right, let's talk about the nose. And I really don't want this to come off as me lamenting or talking down or talking trash about the way Penn State, the players are, the way the team is going. But I think when you look at purely analytics and results and the eye test and what it looks like on the floor, this is what I think if you change this is how you get more wins. Because right now, if Penn State wasn't trying to win, they would not have these good wins against Michigan and Ohio State. Those were really good wins. I'm sorry. I know that this Big Ten conference is not as good as it used to be, but Penn State somewhat, they're getting there, but there's somewhat showing the blueprint to how they can win all the games that they need to. I would have said that I knew they were going to lose to Michigan State. I would have said that Ohio State game was lost, and it was a loss until Penn State came back. Penn State, Georgia Tech, that was a winnable game. Same with Texas A&M. They're proving that they can stay in these games, and if certain things go right, not well, just right, they can win these games. So this is the first thing, right? All right. Three-point shooting, a no. Again, it is really hard to come from last year where you had the best shooting team ever, and now you're given this. Penn State, the Nittany Lions, need to stop taking threes. How do I say this? I'm going to just go into the Big Ten. I'm not even going to look at the percentiles and whatnot, but let's just go into the Big Ten. Penn State is second in the Big Ten at three-point attempt rate. Second at three-point attempt rate. So when you look at that, you're like, okay, so they're getting a lot of shots in, like up, and they're trying their best to do it. Except they're 12th in the Big Ten at three-point percentage. You are so many threes, but you are not hitting them. It's a problem. Like, that actually is a problem. If you're taking that many threes per game, you cannot be hitting them at such a terrible. It's not a good. They're not hitting them at a good rate at all. Like, it's what makes me upset is because now I understand Kanye Clary is going to try and hit his threes. Ace Baldwin's going to get their threes. Zach Hicks, whatever. In my opinion, those are the only three players, maybe DeMarco Dunn, that should be taking threes. They're not hitting them at all at the rate they should be. If you want to look at a higher, they're one of the worst teams in the nation at three-point percentage. They're literally almost at the bottom. You cannot be taking 25 threes per game and hitting them at a 30% clip. That is not, whether or not you want to say, they're going to hit eventually, yada, yada, yada. Really, we remiss to find a game this year where Penn State hit their threes at a 40% clip or higher. Like, actually, that is my goal for the rest of either this podcast or actually, nope, I have it right in front of me. In the entire year, Penn State has not hit 40% they've only hit their threes at a 40% clip or higher once. And that was the win against Ohio State, where they shot 10 of 24 from three. They've hit it higher than 35%, if you count that, 4 times, right? Against Rider, against Delaware State, against, obviously, Ohio State, and against Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech was a few exceptions where they did it against a good team, right? You should not be taking 25 threes a game if you're only going to hit them at a 30% clip. Like, some of the stats I'm looking at here, even in wins, 6 of 25 against Morehead State, 5 of 17 against VCU in that loss, 3 of 29 against Michigan State. And I get it. You were down. You're trying to get up, yada, yada, yada. 23 against Michigan. You, I just, especially that we just spoke about how Penn State is literally one of the better teams at getting to the line. And they have guys that can score from most. I would say Penn State has at least 7 guys who can reliably score in the restricted area. And then they can, and in terms of mid range and outside, they have probably like 4 or 5 guys. So I don't think they should be taking as many threes as they do. You get in line if you could keep your offense inside the arc and leave the 3-point shooting to your best 3-point shooters. Do it. You should not be taking as much as you do because I don't think it works. I don't think it's smart. I don't think it's the best way to win these games. And like we saw, this is not a team that plays good games close, right? Like with that 3-point selection, you're not going to be in games that are wire to the wire. You have a team that's actually I rank, but they're one of the fastest teams in basketball. They're third in the Big Ten in pace. They play fast. So they're in the 74th percentile in pace in the don't take threes. If you're going to play fast, but you're not hitting your threes, obviously if they start hitting their threes, I think their offense can balloon at a crazy pace. But that's not Penn State we're used to. It's either you get a high-paced team that can just convert at the line and just get their rebounds or whatnot and beat you in transition. This Penn State team is not going to beat you with their half-court offense. I'm sorry. Speaking of their bench, guys that can reliably score, I'm going to say no to Leo Boyle minutes. I don't want that to come off as I don't want that to come off as like I'm hating Leo Boyle or anything like that because I think Leo Boyle does a lot of good things well. I think can stretch the floor. We've had a couple games this year where he actually was really good, but in terms of in terms of what you want him to do as a player, in terms of what he should be doing as a player, he hasn't been doing it. Hold on, I'm not sure what just happened with my mic. In terms of what you want him to do as a player, he hasn't been doing it. I'm sorry. Effective field goal percentage in his last 5 games. I know that he hasn't been playing a lot because I don't think they necessarily want him to play the most the minutes because like I said he's what, the 5th guy off the bench or whatnot. The only lineup he's been in the last 5 games that has been relatively positive, and that's only the 3 minutes, is Connie Clary, DeMarco Dunn, Leo Boyle, Zach Hicks, and Kudos Wahab. In the last 5 games he's played in, which is in terms of minutes he's played, which was 7, 6, 5, and 3 in terms of lineups, not a single one of them has had a positive net rating. Actually, if we go deeper than that, if we want to go the last 10 games, let's just do in conference only. Leo O'Boyle hasn't had a positive lineup, right? Because I'm trying to figure out what he's hit from 3. He doesn't get the rebounds you want him to. When he can, he is a big. He's usually one of the tallest players on the court. And I'm not saying he's a bad player. I'm just saying in the certain types of lineups that Penn State wants to run, he is not the guy for them. Why do I say that as well? Because he's not getting the rebounds you want him to. He's not getting to the line as much you want him to. Even what I've heard compare him to is what they want him to have is a Mikey Hennish type role where he could be down, defend, I guess, some players, and also stretch the floor or whatnot. Sort of no offense to Mike Hen, no offense to Leo Boyle, but that's kind of they have the same roles. He's not getting to the line. He's not the line at all. He's not providing much from a scoring standpoint. Even from a creation standpoint, yes, to an extent, Penn State's offense is a little better when he's on the floor, but he's not really the person contributing to it. I think it's more a situation where this X player is out, so the offense gets a little better, rather than Leo O'Boyle is in, so the offense is better, And the thing is, too, I just think it's a situation where Penn State hasn't found a way to use him correctly yet. But what he's providing, what he did at Lafayette, and what he's doing now, he's not doing it. He's not doing it. I'm not sure what you could do, what you can take away from his game. Like he's not enough where he could legitimately be the guy who could defend. I don't think he's the best. He's probably a bottom 3 defender on this team. And what you want him to do in those moments you need him to do it, he's not going to do. I think that's the best way to put it. He's not a guy that you want taking all the shots, especially he's crunch time. You don't want him on the floor. He's an early guy to get people rest. No offense to Leo, but I just he's a great player and can provide some offensive continuity for you. And I think your offense isn't going to get better. Actually, I'm gonna say this right now. This is the type of player Leo Boyle is. Your offense isn't going to get worse with him on it, but it's not going to get better. It will regress to the mean. And the thing is, and things will change obviously as the season goes on and as they play different players, and different teams. But it's not where you want it to be in terms of like it's not where you want it. It's not where you want it to be. I'm sorry. It's this team just doesn't play the way Leo Boyle can help them. That's all I have to say. And then a no. What was my last no? Oh, shot selection. I think that's easy. That is one of the easiest things I could say. Penn State is a team that, for some reason, refuses to play to their strengths. Like I said, I really can't stress you enough how this team doesn't know. Like they need to get to the line more. They're a team that doesn't get to the rim, I think, enough. I think of all their shots, 30% of their shots are at the rim. That is not nearly as high as it should be. Especially for a team that's shooting 62% at the rim, you should not. I promise you should not be only shooting 30% of your shots at the rim. It's laughable. You shoot the best at the rim, get to the rim. You have guys that can create, get to the rim. They're a team that love the 3-point shot. Above the break threes. If I told you most of Penn State's offensive attempts come from above break threes, would you believe me? Because they do. 30%, 30.5% of their shots come from above break threes. They're the 68th percentile in the nation doing that. They're the 81st percentile of corner threes. Too bad they don't hit either at a good clip. So you're telling me they take really bad they take a lot of threes and a lot of corner threes, but they aren't good in any of them. They shoot 30% from above break threes and 29% from corner threes. Okay. All right. Whatever. We already said that this is one of the fastest teams in the nation. Their pace is top 3 of the Big Ten. They want to play fast. The half-court offense isn't good. It's interesting though. It's really interesting though how when this team plays slower, they're actually somewhat better. Penn State a lot like they take early shot clock shots a lot. I think 68% of their shots at the rim come from which is crazy, by the way, come from 20 or 30 minutes on the shot clock. They want to drive a lot, and they hit them in a really 68. They shoot 68%, 10% of their things, whatever. They're in the upper 60 percentile in both. When they take a lot of mid-range shots, it really is crazy how they get the rim and they're successful at the rim, and literally whenever they take it, except when they have a terrible play and they just drawn up 0 to 10 seconds on the shot clock. I think they're shooting 3% on shots at the rim under the shot clock, which is wild to me. It's whatever. In fact, a lot of their shots that they take with under 10 on the shot clock is laughable. I don't think they shoot over 10% on any of them, which I want to say is actually a complete drop off from last year, where a lot of Penn State shots were taken with under 10 seconds on the shot clock, and they were in the upper 80 percentile on every single one of them. So when I tell you this is a complete shift from last year's team, it's a complete shift. And I coming back to last year's team because last year's team was so statistically differently than this team. But a lot of the offense, it seems like a lot of people expect that offense to be the same. So, like I was saying, they take a lot of bad shots. a lot of players on this team want to create their own shot. Actually, all their shots, all their corner, like I need to address this real quick. A lot of their drives are not assisted. They're in the bottom 30th percentile in their drives at the paint and at the rim shots in terms of being assisted. They do not create shots for anybody else. There's no pick and roll offense. It really upset because they're not strengths. If Penn State really wanted to be successful, they need to go out and get to the rim as much as possible and create shots to get in the paint and to get to the line. That is their only thing. Maybe mid-range, take as little threes as possible. And I'm not saying stop taking threes, just stop taking as much threes because they take a lot of threes. They take 25 a game and they don't hit them. So immediately that shot clock, they need to get rid of that because their effective field goal is bad. Their assisted shots in terms of 3-pointers and 2-pointers, that's all I have to say. I guess we should talk about, so that's the yeses, the nos, and the I'm intrigued. I guess what we should talk about is Penn State's upcoming schedule and what do we expect from these teams and what do we expect to going into the rest of the season. I guess they play Northwestern, I believe, on Wednesday. At home, Penn State historically is pretty good against Northwestern at home, so I don't really expect anything too crazy there. Especially this Northwestern team is weird. I'm still not sure if they're good or not, but they are very weird. This Northwestern team is really weird. That is, I forget if Penn State's favored in this game or not, but that should be a slugfest, honestly. 10-3 right now, Northwestern. They haven't really played anybody, but they beat Purdue. So be advised of that. Boo Boo is still on this team. They've lost a lot of their, I think, defensive prowess that they used to have, but the offense is also like not as good as it used to be. I think it win that game. I'm more focused on the Purdue game on Saturday. So we'll expect an episode right after a game on Sunday or Monday because that is going to be the game that I will really see what this Penn State team is because that's going to be their biggest test, their second ranked game actually. Purdue's number 1 in the nation right now, so we'll see. I think that's it for me right now. Penn State is surprising me on a lot of levels because they're proving they can win their games, and because of that, they're even more frustrating to me. We told you the yeses, the nos, I'm intrigued. Penn State just needs to get to the line. This has been the Cutting Down the Nits podcast, Penn State basketball podcast presented by Big Banter Sports. Go check them out on Twitter. Follow us on Twitter at CDTN Pod. We are on all the DSPs. Any place you get podcasts, if you're a Penn State basketball fan, if you're a Penn State fan, or if you're just a college basketball fan, just be on the lookout. Follow me on Twitter or X, however you want to call it, at Noah_Odeej. Follow Big Banter Sports on all their platforms and whatnot. This has been the Penn State basketball podcast, Cutting Down the Nits. Thank you for listening. Till next time, have a nice one.